It is Sunday the 19th of December 2021, and I just had a nice conversation with a new visitor to the Unitarian Church of Montreal, apparently a Hispanic Latino man. He had trouble speaking English, so I switched to French. He understood French, but it was pretty clear that his maternal language was Spanish, which I don't speak, but French is sort of another Latin language. It's a language we can both get by in. So I had a nice chat with him, explaining what the protest was about, especially the issue of being accused of blasphemous libel by the Unitarian Universalist Association. And one of the things that I pointed out to him, because he brought up the whole issue of atheists. I can't remember exactly how it came about, but that was it. Yeah, because I told him about how I was accused of violating Canada's blasphemy law because I blogged about pedophiles and rapists in the Unitarian Universalist religious community. And he came up and he was speaking about the Catholic Church, and he essentially was saying, that the Catholic priests, responsible for the Inquisition and so on, were atheists. And I think he actually has a point. I think he has a point. Like, I do believe that there's a lot of, Christian or seemingly Christian priests and ministers and so on who don't really believe in God. They're just going through the motions for various reasons. They want the power, the prestige, whatever, but they don't genuinely believe in God. So I think that was sort of the point he was trying to make, but I came back to that by letting him know that what I find incredibly ironic, even humorous, is the fact, and it is a fact, that the top level Unitarian Universalist Association leaders, specifically Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, who was the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association in 2012, and Kathleen K. Montgomery, who was the executive vice president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal in 2012. Both of these individuals are atheists. They don't believe in God. It's very, very clear that Reverend Dr. Peter Morales is a pretty die-hard atheist. It's not quite as clear in terms of Kathleen K. Montgomery, but the fact of the matter is, neither of these Unitarian Universalists, really believe in God. Certainly don't believe in the Judeo-Christian take on God. Certainly don't believe in a God that can hold them accountable for their actions. And like I said, in the case of Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, I mean, he was bordering on being an anti-religious atheist. In fact, I think he was an anti-religious atheist in some ways. He denigrated other world religions in a manner similar to how Reverend Ray Drennan did. So there's no question at all, really, that Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, who was ultimately responsible for the Unitarian Universalist Association hiring Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors defamation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel for blogging about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, such as Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell of the Northborough and Westborough congregations in Massachusetts, and Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein's First Parish Norwell pedophile rapist parishioner, Richard Buell. I had blogged about both of these Unitarian Universalist rapists, rapists who were charged, tried, and convicted of raping children and sentenced to jail terms, spent time in jail. Indeed, Richard Buell died in jail. He became ill while he was in jail, and he died while he was incarcerated. Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell was released after 4 years, possibly even less, I've heard some reports, or at least I've seen one report, which claims that he was released after being in jail for 3 years, but certainly, after serving 4 years, he was out after using a teenage Tibetan refugee as a sex slave for as many or more years. So he basically spent a year in jail for each year that he used a teenage Tibetan refugee as a personal sex slave. I'm not sure if that's a fair sentence, but he's been a free man for quite some time. And yes, atheist Unitarian Universalists falsely accused me of violating Canada's blasphemy law and child sex abuse cover-up, legal bullying. I was never prosecuted. I was never even arrested or charged because it's a completely and utterly false accusation. And I made that very, very clear to the Unitarian Universalist Canadian attorney. Again, Stikeman Elliott, barristers and bullshitters defamation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe. And also I made it very, very clear to Reverend Dr. Peter Morales and Kathleen K. Montgomery and the UUA Board of Trustees, UUA moderator Jeannie Corder, etc. All of the top-level leadership of the Unitarian Universalist Association. I made it abundantly clear to them that the accusation was false and that they wouldn't get very far if they tried to prosecute me. I demanded a retraction, a formal withdrawal of that false accusation. I demanded a public apology for that false accusation. And I demanded that they publicly disclose, just how many Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, are in fact guilty of the sexual abuse of children, to say nothing of other sex crimes. So those were my demands following the false accusation of blasphemous libel that was brought against me in a cease and desist demand letter in June of 2012. So we're coming up for a decade now where I've demanded formal withdrawal of the accusation, demanded a public apology, demanded full disclosure about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. And of course, the Unitarian Universalist Association has stubbornly, obstinately refused to do any of these things. So we're still protesting. I keep reminding the Unitarian Universalist Association and Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, Stikeman Elliott, barristers and solicitors of these demands, and they keep ignoring my reminders. My most recent reminder wasn't that long ago. It was within the last few months, and of course zero response from either Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe or the Unitarian Universalist Association. So they'll be getting another reminder soon, and I bring this up, regularly on social media. I tweet about it, I blog about it, so they know, they know that they screwed up royally, and they know that they need to properly deal with the situation. But of course they don't want to, because the whole idea was to keep the sexual abuse of children concealed from the public, and they really don't particularly want to deal with the sexual abuse of children specifically by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, etc. I don't think they've ever even mentioned sexual abuse committed by Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers. They've been forced into talking about sexual abuse committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. But here's the thing, is that they have even officially denied sexual abuse of children by Unitarian Universalist ministers in a seriously flawed, seriously dishonest official apology for clergy sexual misconduct in 2014. In 2014, UUA moderator Jim Key delivered what was supposed to be a official apology for clergy sexual misconduct of the UUA Board of Trustees. That's the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Association. You know, the board is supposed to oversee the administration, and the administration had apologized in 2000, and I think I had something to do with that, because the apology came just about a month and a half after I protested outside the headquarters of the UUA in Boston. So interesting little coincidence, you know, I protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse outside 25 Beacon Street in Boston in early May of 2000. And a little bit later in May, the executive vice president, Kathleen K. Montgomery, the same one who falsely accused me of blasphemous libel, she set up an ad hoc committee to deal with clergy sexual misconduct issues in the church. And during the 2000 General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association, an apology for clergy sexual misconduct was delivered. So literally, you know, certainly less than 2 months after I protested outside the corporate headquarters, shall we say, of the Unitarian Universalist Association against clergy abuse, and included clergy sexual misconduct of various kinds, this apology was delivered. You know, the committee to deal with clergy sexual misconduct issues was set up soon after my protest, and then the apology came, you know, less than 2 months later, you know, towards the end of June of 2000. Now, I'm not claiming to be single-handedly responsible for this, because there were quite a number of other people, you know, demanding an apology and demanding acknowledgement and so on. I was certainly not the only one. But I do believe that my protest outside 25 Beacon Street, which was seen by top-level UUA leadership, including Reverend Dr. John A. Burns, who was the president of the UUA at the time. I remember trying to hand a letter to President Burns as he was entering the 25 Beacon Street after coming back for lunch, and he stepped out into the street to avoid my outstretched hand, you know. Like I'm on the sidewalk, he's coming along with a colleague, and they're coming back from lunch. You know, I had tried to hand him the letter on his way out. You know, I saw him on his way out, and I tried to, and he avoided me then. And then they're coming back, and I'm still there. And so I reach out my hand, you know, full length with the letter, you know, holding it out for him to take. And he literally stepped into the street to avoid taking the letter. So it just shows how willfully ignorant top-level UUA leadership were and still are when it comes to the issue of clergy abuse, whether it's sexual or non-sexual. But yeah, that's just a classic example. And then President Morales was pretty much the same way. I went down again in 2010, and I protested while there was a Board of Trustees meeting going on, because, you know, not enough had been done. Yes, that apology had been delivered in 2000, but essentially no real change came as a result of it. You know, it was same old, same old. You know, the UUA continued to brush off complaints about clergy misconduct of all kinds, refused to deal with past clergy sexual misconduct and clergy abuse, or even non-sexual abuse and so on. So really nothing changed, and so that is why in 2014 there was this second apology delivered, which, as I said, contained a brazen lie about the sexual abuse of children. UUA moderator Jim Key, in this, you know, so-called apology, official apology for clergy sexual misconduct, said there were no incidents of abuse of children or elders in my investigations, or he might have said there was no incidents of abuse of elders and children. It was one way or the other. I can't remember exactly what the order was. That is a brazen lie, because there definitely was sexual abuse of children by Unitarian Universalist ministers, including the rape of children and unnatural rape of children by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell. So that's it. That brings us back to the brazen lies. But let's come back to 2010, because I was talking about that. So in 2010, April, if I remember correctly, I went down to Boston because there was a board meeting, and I decided that I was going to go down and protest, raise the issues again. And when I got there, it was the Boston Marathon weekend, which I didn't realize. So I wasn't going to get any media attention when there was the Boston Marathon on. You just got this one-man protest, outside the UUA headquarters in 25 Beacon Street at the time. So I realized, okay, we're not going to get any media attention. Like, it's going to be, even if I get some, it's going to be, 8-page news kind of thing. So I sort of thought things through a bit. And I thought, maybe it would be better, if possible, to attend the board meeting and say a thing or two, raise the issue. And so I said, well, let's try that. Let's see what happens. Because I didn't know what would happen. I considered it possible that they wouldn't even allow me in the building. They certainly, I thought it was possible they wouldn't allow me to attend the meeting or ask questions or anything. But I said, let's give it a try. Because protesting isn't going to accomplish much this weekend, but I might actually accomplish something if I attend the meeting and ask some questions and make some statements. And so that's I tried, and I made some initial inquiries with some board members who were they had like a